you've delivered £1.4 million in commission to brokers since March. How much of this went to bridging brokers?
Oh, direct question. So just to step back from it for a minute, Beth. That's it. I mean, everybody's kind of feeling a little bit weary. I think it's fair to say within the business and outside of it. I mean, I think we started off looking to communicate to our teams why what they're doing is of so much value. And then we stepped back with Rob and with Vicky and with Rostrum as well, and sort of said, look, there must be some data points that show the real value that's been developed. I mean, we do often say that being open for business through lockdown is something that we should be proud of, but so what, and what did it do? And so what I would say is that we looked at the way in which we had helped our colleagues. So we looked at not just continuing to kind of keep everybody very well employed, but also add to the team. We looked at how we'd helped customers, and we also thought how we were helping the wider community of intermediaries, our partners. Because if we're not strong and if they're not strong, then actually that's where kind of specialist lending and also bridging finance in particular is going to suffer, and customers aren't going to get access to the sorts of solutions that Rob was talking about earlier that brokers are really appreciating. So to answer the question, I mean, we have seen a very strong level of performance through the period in terms of bridging. So as a product, it tends to attract because of the complexity and the high dropout rate, high levels of procuration fees. So it was the majority, or certainly more than half of the payments that have been made were to bridging brokers. And actually, what we found is, whilst, as I think I said earlier, we've had over 400 registrations of our portal, of whom 2/3 are existing brokers and 1/3 are new brokers. We've actually seen an increasing proportion of business coming to us via our kind of premier brokers. So people that have used Masthaven for a number of years, what we're probably seeing is in that sort of environment, some of the advising brokers are obviously using bridging specialists, and those bridging specialists are going to the place where they know they can get service, or where they can get a product, and they're confident in the response they're going to get, and they're coming to us on that basis. So that's a trend that's been seen as well over the last 6 months. So whilst it kind of it calls out from a financial perspective, all we're trying to do is just go that internally we're trying to communicate some positive messages around what has been the result of individuals being working so hard and working during this time, and these are just a few things that we kind of thought might be interesting to the market, and kind of just it's a horrendous time, but it just gives us a kind of snapshot on some of the positives that are coming through as well.
I think it's fair to say, Beth, what we tried to do all the way through the last sort of 6 months is put ourselves in the broker's shoes, put ourselves in the customer's shoes, trying to sort of, from our experience in previous crunches, because we're that old, we've been through this before, trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the brokers. What do they want? So what you'll have seen at the beginning of this awful situation 6 months ago, we weren't the first to make changes to our policy and criteria and rates. We weren't the last. We sat on our hands a little bit, watched how things were developing, and then tried to make one significant batch of changes and then stick with them. And I think that went down very well as well, because obviously for different reasons, different lenders with different funding models had to change more quickly and had to make sort of decisions very quickly and change things a little bit more regularly. We think one thing that went down with ourselves well is the fact that we just made one significant change. Back to my point earlier, I think something that's helped us greatly over the last 6 months is something I know you picked up with John and Alan in the last conversation that you had, which is the portal. Because again, back to my point now, I think we're finding more and more general mortgage brokers that have stayed away and shied away from bridging in the past because I think it's hard, it's difficult, it's complicated. The fact that they can transact business with us now in a portal, very similarly to how they transact mortgage business, it feels less alien to them. And I think that's been a really, really big help to them to get into it and deal with a lender that has a very similar approach to bridging as we do to sort of long-term products as well.